Hello. Welcome everyone to the Exposure Ninja Digital Marketing Podcast Extra. Today we're going to be talking about how to avoid digital marketing strategy mistakes in 2024. I'm joined by the fantastic Davies, who runs Exposure Ninja's own marketing, and Freddie, who has advised, I don't know, how many businesses do you reckon you've advised on their marketing, Freddie?
I think I worked this out the other day, and I think it's over 800 now. So
wowzers. Okay, so we've got a fair few war stories, I guess, from creating digital marketing strategies and also seeing some of the mistakes that are made. As we go through, please let us know if you've got any questions. Just drop them in the chat. I can see we've had a question about why we say things like people in the Philippines are not real. E. Kelly, we have never said this. We absolutely love our Philippine team. I don't know where that comes from. But if you've got any other questions, then please feel free to drop them in the chat and we will answer them as we go. And if you're listening to this, we'll describe anything that we're looking at on screen. So let's kick off with some common digital marketing strategy mistakes. Dale, I know one of the things that you've experienced over the years has been that it can be quite difficult to get a digital marketing strategy rolled out if there are lots of people involved and you need to get lots of buy-in. So maybe you could give us a bit of context. What have you experienced in this area and what are the tricks that you found to get a digital marketing strategy buy-in?
Well, there are endless examples I could go through, from working with different businesses, clients, even working internally, trying to get buy-in from people, like your CEO and things like that. They often present a challenge. I could go through several of those, but one that stands out for me from this year in particular is the idea of we're going to produce a book, for example. We're going to produce this book and it's going to be the best thing ever. My mistake was not considering the buy-in from the stakeholder of the stakeholder. There's so many other people involved I've not considered. So I thought about, how do I get the buy-in of this one individual, not thinking the impact on the other 5 individuals that also need to be bought in as well. So it doesn't matter how much I analyze it and think, okay, their first question is going to be this, so I should say this before they even get to their question, and then they'll be like, wow, okay, he's clearly thought it through. Well, what about the other 5 people's questions? No wonder that it's not going to, it's not going to get signed off. No wonder it's not going to progress. So sometimes you need to think of the stakeholder of the stakeholder. That's the term that I picked up when we did a continuous process management continuous change management training. There we go. How your boss has a boss, but they might also be thinking, okay, if I make this decision about this particular project or about this direction we take the business in, well, how's that going to impact the vendors that we use? How's that going to impact our clients? How's that going to impact my bank and the mortgage payments that I have to make, or I have to pay for the property that we're in? There's a lot of extra stuff that you could consider and add into your strategy in the way you present it way in advance, so that they're already at peace and they think you can, you've got it all under control. I'm sure there are many other examples from your own experience as well, Tim. You were mentioning something the other day about website development and projects that take months and months, which sounds familiar as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we see a lot of clients trying to get their marketing strategies signed off or not in some cases. There was a case in not too distant memory where we'd been through a whole design and development process on a website. This had taken months and months, and then it comes to the day before launch and our contact in the client's business says, yeah, I'm just going to mention it to my CEO or whatever. CEO takes a dislike to some elements of the design. The whole project, from being a day before going live, then has to go back into design, back through development. And, I think there's this challenge. I guess you must experience it a lot, Freddie, where the fastest route to getting something done, and that's all what we want to do. We just want to get things done. We want to get it moving, is just to give sign off. And it feels painful and it adds time to it if we have to go to different people and say, what do you think about this? But actually, unless we do that stuff, we're just going to have to unpick a bunch of work later on. How do you manage this when you're helping clients with this, Freddie?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And it's something I've been thinking about as we've been speaking so far, because it's definitely happened before, especially with large organizations where you might have maybe an MD or a CEO or even a CFO who's ultimately involved in decision making of like what they want to do with their marketing. This also ties in sometimes with websites too. And you think you're just speaking with like the marketing manager or whoever the head of marketing is, and it's their decision. But ultimately there's lots of people involved in that conversation. And the earlier you can bring them in, the better. And it's also, I think, just about trying to make sure that you're trying to be like on everyone's side. And it's really hard to do that when you've got lots of different stakeholders who have different, they have different priorities, don't they? That's the thing here, that you want to make sure that you're covering all bases. So we're thinking about, okay, how does this impact the financial side of things? How do we explain this in a way to someone that's going to sort of hit their own KPIs as well? So yeah, it's just about trying to get everyone on board as early as possible. And I would say it's usually a bit of a red flag if they're not too keen to actually get people involved when you can see there's a structure there as well.
Yeah, that's great advice. Get people involved as early as possible, isn't it? Like, I think step one is just working out who needs to be involved in the decision. If you're going to be planning out a marketing strategy for next year, who actually needs to be involved in signing off on that? And if in doubt, add them in, and then just get them involved throughout. So getting them involved doesn't have to be, having a formal meeting and presenting to them. It can just be meeting with them and saying, okay, I'm going to be putting together a marketing strategy. What are some things that you think I should be considering? Or where are your priorities? Where are your concerns? So that they just feel heard. I think the most difficult situation is when you get people who don't feel like they've been heard. They don't feel like they've been involved. So they just want to give their opinion for the sake of it, just to sort of, I want to make sure I've had my say. And if you can do that early, then that sort of that sort of helps with that.
If I may cut in there's one set of people that I think that often gets overlooked with buy-in as well, and that's actually the person you're trying to sell to. So often when we're trying to get buy-in, we're thinking, okay, how's my line manager going to approve my budget for next year, the strategy, and so on? It's really easy to overlook, well, is this strategy actually going to meet the people where I want them? Is it going to even appeal to them? They're going to find it, for us, we're always really keen to give actionable marketing content. So you actually go away, you can do something with it. When we're putting the strategy together or the project, or whatever it is it going to satisfy the end user, in a programming sense, or for marketing the customer, the lead, the future client, the future, 24-month retained service user? I think that's often surprisingly overlooked.
That's a really good point, actually. Dale, yeah, I was going to say, I think that's a really good point, because sometimes you come to people with ideas, in particular, say with our website looks and the messaging is maybe quite poor and it's not really tapping into the right audience, or we don't even know who the audience is. And then, if you get someone on board who's like part of the marketing team and they're like, yeah, we need to do this, but they need to sell that idea to their own team as well. And if they come back and they don't really get it, then we've failed at the front end by not getting everyone involved and telling them that this is why we're doing this, because it's going to help with X, Y, Z as well. So yeah.
Great stuff. All right, the next mistake that we're going to cover is a kind of two sides of the same spectrum mistake. This is either spreading your marketing budget too thin, particularly thinking about, let's do all of the strategies, right? We've heard Gary Vee says there's 10 social channels. We need to be posting 100 times a day on each one. Then we need to do SEO, then we need to do PPC. So we do everything. That's one side of the mistake. The other side of the mistake is, no, we're not going to do any of that. We're just going to put everything on red 12 and we're just going to go all in on this, and this is going to save us. This is going to be our ticket to this time, Rodders, next year we're going to be billionaires because SEO is going to save us. They don't focus on anything else. So Dale, what's your take on how businesses, when they're planning their marketing strategies for next year, how they should think about the number of channels and how much to take on?
I guess it comes down to the customer again, like the lead that you're trying to acquire, or that future e-commerce shopper that's going to keep coming back to you. It's understanding who they are, where they're coming from, what they want, how frequently they want to hear from you, how frequently they want to see you. If they get bored of seeing your logo, bored of seeing your face, if you're presenting as the main person behind the brand, it's really easy to follow the popular trends. For example, with our marketing agency, we're constantly on top of like what's happening, what's changing. You want to hear about AI? We're the digital marketing agency to speak to about it because we got it down. Okay. But it's very easy, like to navigate towards, say, a buzzword. Earlier in the year, last year, when I'm thinking about strategy for ourselves for this year, I'm thinking community. That's a great kind of, I totally see the appeal. That'd be really, really great for us. But then when we start to research and speak to customers, I've spoken to several of ours, and I start to ask them, okay, how do you learn about digital marketing? They're not active in communities. They're finding it through just search or these other channels. So just because this great thing is growing and people are really advocating for it a lot, a particular channel, be on TikTok, be on whatever, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to match with where your best customer is. Like for ourselves, we know exactly which is the best channel to get the best quality client that are going to stay with us, and we can do our best work for, in specific industries, in specific geolocations. But if we then start to pick up on, okay, let's do a newsletter, and there's a big thing and everyone's talking newsletters, our perfect target buyer, our purchaser, they might have no interest in newsletters. Their inbox is swamped entirely. It's a complete waste of time, and our ROI from that is going to be 0 to none. So again, you have to understand who your buyer is. Put that extra time into really uncovering who your buyer is, putting together your buyer persona, and then you'll have a better idea of which channels to focus on instead of everything all at once.
Yeah, I think the challenge is you can look at any industry and you can find examples of businesses that have grown by doing a great job in, whatever channel you want, right? So the tendency or the temptation is to think, well, we need to make everything a priority then, because some businesses in our space have grown using TikTok and organic social, and some have grown using, just plain text, and some have grown using search, and some have grown using paid, and some have grown using emails, and some have grown using events. So if we want to grow, we need to do all of these things. Freddie, when a client comes to you and says, okay, where do we even look? Where do we start with this? Where do we work out? They might be running a whole bunch of channels, but where do we actually prioritize? Where do we put most of our resource into? How do you start to break that down? What's the framework that you're using to work out where they're going to get the best return on investment?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's completely dependent to the client themselves, their industry, and I think coming back to Dale's point, we need to think about, okay, where's actually the best channel to focus on based on where the buyers are, based on if people are searching for it, but then also looking at the wider side of things too. They might be already, I have this quite a lot sometimes, people are spending money in multiple channels, but they're not actually spending enough to get a return on investment. So PPC is a good example with this. You might be, I don't know, spending like $1,000 on Facebook ads, Google ads, and Bing ads, when in reality, if you were putting $3,000 towards one channel, making sure that was actually working as well for you as it could do, and then you could reinvest the money you're getting from that channel working, rather than just spreading it way too thin. That's one of the main problems I usually see. And the other one is actually just sometimes not giving enough time as well. So that was often quite a big issue with PPC, but that often ties into the budget issue as well, because you can test quicker if you've actually got enough budget into one channel rather than spread across. And then I guess the other scenario is usually we often have clients where we look at PPC and we're like, it's like $200 a click or something, and it's like, it's completely insane. It's like, if we were going to actually try and spend, and they only have so much budget, if they only have like $10,000 a month to spend, and we're looking to do that with paid ads, we just know that realistically it makes way more sense to say look at SEO rather than paid ads, because although it's going to take longer for you to see improvements and see the traffic increase, it's just going to be a lot more effective long term. So it completely depends on the client, really.
I think for most businesses, we end up trying to find a mixture of we've called them like large flywheel, slow flywheel channels. So channels that they can sort of dial up and dial down and can be quite responsive. Like, it's good to have some sort of paid channels that you're you're pretty confident if you start having a quiet month or whatever, you can just increase the budget, you can start driving more traffic that way. And then some sort of core organic channels which are going to form your priority, and these are going to be the ones that generate you the most long-term visibility and can really help you dominate a space. Most businesses that dominate a space, they tend to have some organic channels that are performing consistently well for them, don't they? And it's about making sure you've got that balance.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, at the same time, I suppose you can also become over-reliant. So this is the trouble. We've got a book called How to Get to the Top of Google, and someone will read this and go, right, SEO is literally the key to all of my problems in the world, and if we can just put all of our eggs in the SEO basket, we'll succeed. So what's the danger, Dale, of going too much that way and putting everything into one channel?
Losing all of your ranking and seeing your traffic completely plummet. Bye website ranking, bye traffic, bye business model, bye everything. Yeah, it's a really tricky one. I think I've been doing digital marketing for a fair while. I've seen it happen a number of times with. I remember one of the first instances was when Facebook started to limit reach for pages and things like that. This would have been like 7 or 8 years ago. And yeah, there were lots of businesses that were just earning a lot of, doing some good business, whether that was lead generation or whatever, doing really well. And then Facebook just undercuts you and you can't get to those customers anymore. You just can't access them without paying. And your business model was generous before maybe, or maybe you were just breaking even. But once Facebook takes it away, you're then going to have to pay over the odds, like way more than you would ever have committed to your marketing budget beforehand, to get those same people coming back to you, to even be seen, let alone, trying to retain anyone or trying to find new customers. That's an increased expense. We see it with so many other channels. If you could build yourself up on TikTok or whatever social media channel, if they decide to get rid of you for whatever reason, they can, and then you're back to square one again. You might be able to get some people over if you've got enough buzz around you that people go, oh gosh, this is worth talking about, there's a news piece and so on. But if you don't, if you're a smaller business, medium-sized business, you're doing 4-5 mil in turnover and you're leaning heavily into SEO, you are going to have a problem if you, for whatever reason, have a ranking decrease and traffic increase. So it's better to diversify. But as we said earlier, it doesn't mean you have to diversify to every channel available. Well, that doesn't sound like fun to me.
Ron's made a great point in the comments about the recent helpful content updates and recent core updates on Google. A lot of affiliate businesses, you see the traffic graphs and they are absolutely decimated. And I think, as digital marketing is evolving, we're now at a stage where pretty much every digital channel is algorithmic. Even email marketing is algorithmic, right? Because you're trying to get out of the promotions folder into the, the main folder in Gmail or whatever. So even those channels that previously would have, we know that people are going to be seeing our emails, for example. Well, actually, the last few years, you can't bet on that at all, actually. Every single channel is algorithmic. And the thing about algorithms is that they change. And even if they're not changing because of some human intervention, most of them have a machine learning component anyway, which is designed to maximize engagement. So by placing your bets on any one channel, you're hoping that you're going to continue to be rewarded by whichever algorithm you're at the mercy of. And that's quite a risky thing, isn't it, Freddie? So if you're working, or if you're advising a client, for example, has a huge, let's say they've relied on organic visibility on search, for example, and this has been a massive driver of traffic for them over the years. And they come to you and say, look, this is working really well for us. We want to go even harder with this. At what point do you say, I feel a little bit uneasy about this. I think we need to get some other supports under this bridge to make sure that, worst case scenario, helpful content update 2.0 comes out and you get tanked?
Yeah, it's a really good point, because I think it's so easy to get just sucked into one channel if it's working as well as it can do. And yeah, it's worked for how many years, 5, 6, 7 years, and you don't think about the implications of it dropping off. I'd say it's a case of starting usually slow with other channels to test if they've never done them before, or maybe even looking at potentially running those channels in a different way. So maybe using an offer that may not have been used as part of an SEO strategy, trying to diversify through things like email marketing is something usually we'd be looking to do as quickly as possible if that's something they've never done before. Because if they're already getting that traffic, then it's just a case of maybe some micro conversions that would then feed into maybe longer term sales, depending on type of business. But yeah, I'd say it's really just testing, and you can only test to see what works. Obviously, you usually have a good best guess. So, for example, if you were let's say you're a B2B e-commerce business and you sold quite big orders and you've been reliant on search, I'd say you could probably be then looking at maybe looking at LinkedIn ads if the average order value is big enough. But again, like starting small and just testing it out and seeing which messaging is working best, especially if you have like a specific YCP as well.
Yeah.
If I may, with that one, I've got 2 points I want to share. One is with the testing. One thing I really love businesses to do is to set up a landing page for like a key offer, fire as much paid traffic as you can at it, just to see if it's worthwhile, if your cohort that you're trying to target is interested. And then if you get the results you need, then A/B test that on the organic page. So you can take your service page, A/B test it, and then you've got a bit of proof that this initial test is going to work. You can roll it out and see if your wider audience is also going to buy into it. That's the first thing. The second thing is offsite SEO. So with SEO, obviously we have like a lot of love for it because it brings that organic traffic, top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom of funnel, and so on. There's actually all of that offsite, all the traffic that doesn't go to you that you can work on as well. So if your rankings drop, for example, but you've built up such a reputation through, guest posting, brand work, PR, that your name is on everybody else's website, you're still getting an impact there by people knowing who you are, what you offer, how good you are, your expertise, your trust, authority, all that stuff, all that useful stuff. That brand building is still going to bring you in people who will do that navigational search of, okay, I'm searching for exposure ninja, even though I can't find them if I search for this specific service. So yeah, that offsite SEO, promotion of your brand building, still massively important, even if your ranking is, fluctuating, going to drop because of whatever.
Very good point out. Also a great segue into, if you do want some help creating a personalized digital marketing strategy for the next year, then you can request your free website and marketing review from the team here at exposureninja.com/review. If you're really lucky and you pray to the marketing gods, you may even get Freddie doing your review for you. I can't guarantee that. No complaints, please, if you don't. But go to exposureninja.com/review to request your free website and marketing review. If you're eligible, we'll basically do a lot of this advisory work for you completely free of charge, send you a video, usually within 2 to 3 working days, and it'll be killer. Okay. Anything to add on that before we go to our final mistake? Going once, going twice. No. Okay. So our final mistake, and I think this is going to be something that resonates with a lot of people that are watching and listening, is that you go and put all the energy into building a marketing strategy up front. You get everyone bought in. You're like, right, these are the channels that we're going to go to. We know what our plan is going to be for the year. And then, no plan survives the first punch from the enemy, right? You log in on January the 1st, Google's changed everything, your pay-per-clicks all on fire, whatever. The plan is decimated almost immediately, and it's completely out of date, right? This is like an archive snapshot of something that happened in the past. Dale, you've done a fantastic job with Exposure Ninja's marketing of building in a consistent review cadence and making sure that everyone's bought in to this kind of consistently evolving marketing strategy. I wondered if you could perhaps summarize your approach here. How do you actually keep a marketing strategy up to date as you start rolling things out?
Yeah, this is a tricky one. So I'm fortunate enough to have been doing the marketing for us for a couple of years. So I've done different styles of this. I've done, trying to span out, schedule out the entire year. This is a focus. I've tried, and that's not worked out. Day 2, it's dead in the water. I've tried doing monthly and then again, dead in the water. I tried quarterly. I think it all comes down to the size of your business, how many people are working in your team. You just have to find something that matches your business and how you will operate. But I tend to find that, at least for our size of business, I imagine this works for a lot of people, have a general idea of what your strategy is for the year and then work from quarter to quarter or halves to halves. So just, have a rough picture of, okay, this is what I'm going to focus on for this quarter. And what are the seasonal trends that I can expect? So for us, I already know for next year what subject matters we're going to be focusing on in Q3 and Q4. After you do it for a little while, you understand, okay, this is what people are searching for and when, and then you can factor that into your decision process. So for example, with the videos, which Tim and we work with Jess and Avea to decide what we're going to work on, it's all based upon, okay, we'll have an idea session. Which 10 titles do you think we should work on? Okay, great. Let's bring those in. Then they're based on competitor YouTube channels. They're based on what maybe other agencies are doing, what trends there are, what our internal team are talking about. Is there a capacity that we could help to support and fill up as well? You take all of that in together and then just repeatedly every week, just plan out the next 12 weeks, the rest of this quarter. Are we still happy with this cadence? Are we still happy with these titles? Is there anything else we want to bring in, even if it means pushing back something we're really excited about? How do the managers feel? How do the service delivery teams feel? How do the SDRs and everyone in sales, how do they feel about it? Is there anything that we're missing? Double check the next 12 weeks. Is that the right order? And just move things around. But if you stick to a process, stick to that cadence of constantly checking, you're not going to not have a plan, but you're also going to leave yourself an opportunity to jump on trends. So you can quickly insert a video about Google Gemini, which we did in recent weeks, but we still have our upcoming videos, or they've been published whilst I've been on annual leave, about go-to-market strategy or digital marketing strategy budgeting and all these kinds of things. They can still come in perfectly timed because we understand the market, we understand the seasonality and stuff like that. So it's a case of understanding what people want, understanding what your company needs, sales team, service delivery in our case, and so on, and what's changing in the market. So don't plan out too long, but be flexible in what you do.
Freddie, obviously you're advising businesses on sometimes on like a new marketing strategy, something that they've not done before. How do you plan out or how do you choose the KPIs? How do you choose the metrics that they should be measuring against to say whether or not this is working?
Yeah, so it really comes down to the business we're working with. But I mean, usually the most important one is revenue, like it should be for most businesses. There are some cases where it might be a slightly different business model. So say for search, they need to rank highly for specific keywords because it actually is part of their business model where they rank to get traffic through for things like ads, or like job listings, for example, might be one example of that. So it's actually ranking that's going to be the most important KPI there. But yeah, I would say most of the time it's going to be revenue, and so therefore it's working out having a target that we're trying to get to that's realistic, that is not like a complete moonshot, but obviously we want to be aiming as high as we can at the same time.
Yeah, that's great advice. And what about timescales? Because I think Dale said earlier, if you're testing a new channel, it might take a little while to get, positive results. So when someone says to you, yeah, we're thinking of embarking on this SEO strategy, for example, as an example of a channel that might take a while, like how long do we give this before we decide, yes, it's working, or yes, it's not working?
Oh, that's a good question. That's one I get quite a lot.
That's the $1 million
You've done quite a good video on that one, Tim. So can I just? No, I'm joking. Usually it's going to be. This is going to be a long-term game, basically. So in the early stages, it's about making sure you're using the right metrics to see those improvements. So yeah, I mean, Ron's right. 6 to 12 months. I was going to say that eventually, but in the early stages, maybe the first few months, it's just about tracking, okay, where are we at as a baseline and how are we doing in comparison to that, and understanding that there's the way a lot of SEO work and the timings with it work is that it's going to take time for that to bed in, for Google to understand what's changed on the page and to re-index it and to test it and to slowly move it up. And at the same time, if you're working on, say, offsite SEO as well, it can quite quickly snowball because it's sort of like compound interest in that way. If you start building up say backlinks and quality links from like relative well-known and topical sites as well. That's going to be helping to get you there, but it's going to take longer, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So 6 to 12 months is the sort of usually the benchmark. It's also important to be super realistic in really competitive spaces as well, and be like, look, this might actually take longer. This might take more like 12 to 18 or 18 to 24 to get to where you want to be.
Lily's just commented, CEOs expect results way too fast. Try not to be offended by that. Underestimate budget. And so the more I'm armed with knowledge, the easier my life is. I think that's a great point, isn't it? Recognizing the amount that you're able to invest in a channel and having a look at competitors, whatever tools you're using, but having a look at what competitors are investing. You know, if they've been investing tens of millions of dollars per year for the last 10 years, and you're going in with, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars per year, expecting to sort of leave them in the dust in a year is going to be completely unrealistic. So making sure that you've got that data to hand to say, just want to set expectations here. We're going to pick smaller battles that we know that we can win, rather than going for complete dominance against well-established competitors. That's going to be really important, to make sure everyone's expectations are aligned right at the start, so that 3 months later, they're not, well, hold on, how come I'm not number one for gambling?
Yeah, for sure. I think as well, people often see SEO as a ladder, whereas in reality, it's more like a race. Because if someone's already gone 100 miles down the road and you're going 50 miles an hour, it's still going to take you a lot of time to catch up with them, even if they're now just at walking pace. So yeah.
2 hours.
There is one more thing I would add on to this, if you don't mind me interjecting, Tim, sorry, is the mistake. So this episode is about talking about digital marketing mistakes. I think sometimes one of the biggest mistakes is choosing the wrong success metrics. So, for example, like I'm looking for a specific ranking increase for certain keywords and so on. They might actually not have as much significance as you would get from improving your funnel, improving your conversion rate. You might not need to change your ranking. It might be that your lead generation form is just not effective, or your email sequences aren't working correctly. You may want to launch with a new channel for next year. You might want to do podcasts as part of your strategy for 2024. The success metrics for that shouldn't really be monthly downloads, because monthly downloads are hard to come by without a really heavy PR strategy tied to it to promote it and get listeners onto it. So you're better off. Success metrics for that are people coming back for the second episode and the third episode? Are people listening to the end? Are we getting more people mentioning the podcast when we speak to them in the sales process or post-sales? Like, how important is that metric? Is that podcast? How can you measure it in a way that better supports your argument of this is an essential part of our strategy for next year, not, oh, okay, we need to hit this many downloads and this many reviews, ratings, stars, whatever. That's success. Because that's kind of vanity. It's not the same thing. So you've got to pick the right metrics and make sure that you get that buy-in that we talked about at the beginning, that people understand the importance of this as a part of your funnel, rather than, okay, this is just a cool channel to have.
Yeah. Great point. Okay, well, folks, it's been absolutely wonderful talking about mistakes. I'm sure we could, all talk about the endless frustrating stories that we've seen over the years, as could the listeners. But we are out of time. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Don't forget, you can request your free website and marketing review. I say don't forget as if you could have forgotten. Don't forget, remember to always echo your CTA. Don't forget the free website and marketing review. You can request it from exposureninja.com/review, and we'll give you our take on what we think your priority channels should be. You don't even need to tell us. We're going to see if we can work it out based on our data and our secret ninja. So go to exposureninja.com/review for that. But otherwise, thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and see you next week.